Welcome back to MOMnation Unscripted. Now, a word from our sponsor.
The best way for a mom in business to make the biggest impact online without living online is by designing her business to provide an experience that works with who she is at her core. That's why I created the Brand Experience Identity Quiz to help you find your brand's personality so you can create the best business for you and your family first. You can take it at brandingwithbeth.com/BEI quiz. And I'll see you inside the Biz Mom Mastermind here in MOMnation.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
It's Tuesday already, isn't it?
It sure is.
That's how I know what day of the week it is.
Right. I know.
I'm doing well. We are ridiculously busy because it's birthday month. I told you that. So
yes,
everyone in my family pretty much has a birthday, except for my son this month. And then it's Father's Day. So all the things. I've been eating out way too much.
I don't know that there's such a thing, but okay, go on.
I promise I'm wearing my mask to and fro, but when I get there. But anyway, eating out way too much. Got to stop doing that. Too many birthday parties, too many celebrations, too much fun. Oh my God, just kidding. But yeah, it's been very busy. Real estate's also been ridiculous. So we're working hard. How about you? What's going on in your world?
So, well, there's lots of things going on in my world. So we're just on the ever-going process of helping my son get services for autism. So that's an everyday thing. So we have 6 appointments in 5 days this week for him. So
That's it?
That's all.
Oh.
Nothing too stressful or anything like that. So, so yeah, that's fun. And then we're working on, well, what we're going to be talking about today, figuring out what to do about school next year.
Like with Autumn or with Jack or both?
Both, yeah. So we have, so Jack would be in special education, assuming the school cooperates with us in this process. He's been registered for special education, but they still have to determine how much support he'll get, those sorts of things. And so it's a process. Every step of this is. And so we're working on that. We're working on getting him an IEP, which it is something that makes it so he can get better support. I don't know. There's 5,000 acronyms in this world that I am still wrapping my head around, but IEP is one of them. So, and so there's that. So we're also looking at if the school doesn't offer the support that he needs, then what are we going to do instead? And so we're looking at alternative education for our family because at the moment, it doesn't look like they're going to be offering the support that he needs. So maybe they'll come through and prove me wrong. But anyway, yeah, we're exploring a micro school option. So there's a online school called, it's not online, it's called Prenda, and it's in person. And so somebody will work with, so I would become a guide. And so for 16 hours a week, my kids and at least three to 8 other kids would come to my house for 16 hours a week, and we would do school together for those 16 hours a week. And then, they provide.
So does another parent take the kids on the following week? Is that how it goes?
No, it's just 16 hours a week. So, so it's one person does it, and then they just make it so that you can use their syllabus, use state funds, use lots of things like that to be able to have this experience with your family without, it's kind of like the homeschool experience without having to do it all yourself and come up with the curriculum and those sorts of things. So we're just fully in I don't know what's going on mode yet.
Right. So because you're gonna figure out what all of these different types of schools even are, right? Because I don't know. I only have a 6-year-old. I just started this whole train. So
yeah.
learning
Yeah.
as well.
And I don't know all of them, so I'm really glad that we have the geniuses here that we have here that can help us with understanding all of this.
Yes, I'm excited for the show today.
Yes, I am too. I think it's just really, really needed. I think that so many families are at this point where like they're looking at the guidelines that are coming out for how schools are going to reopen, and people are either like super on board with it or they're super not. And it's kind of just like society right now. There is a great divide. And so I think that it's really important that we explore the fact that there are other options for education besides just go to public school. So,
Totally agree. I love it.
yeah. So that being said, we have Kim Anderson and Tara Mott. Am I pronouncing Mott correctly? Okay, M-O-T-T, yeah, Mott. And so they are from Montessori in the Park, and so they know all about alternative education here in Arizona in particular, but this can offer insights for people anywhere, honestly. So, hi guys.
Hello.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Of course, thank you for being here. So, so first off, you guys are at Montessori in the Park. Would you mind just sharing with us what Montessori in the Park is before we dive into all of the nuances of alternative education?
Sure. So Montessori in the Park is located in Goodyear. We're on the northwest corner of Litchfield Road in McDowell. We're behind what used to be Macaroni Grill. We started in 2007, and we are a nonprofit school. We're a private nonprofit school, as opposed to a charter or public. So we are tuition-based, and we are currently serving kids 18 months old to 12 years old.
Wow. So what grade is that, real quick?
It'd be the equivalent of 6th grade.
Okay. Wow, I'm good. I did that in my head.
So just based on like what you said, so there's public school, there's private school, there's charter school, we talked about micro school, and there's homeschool. So like there's those 5 really. And so it's interesting because like so many people like think of there's like public school or there's homeschool, but there's actually a huge range here.
Right.
So
charter school, I never understand. What if I might interrupt and ask what that is?
Please.
Because I don't understand it. Sorry.
Sure. So in Arizona, not in every state, but definitely in Arizona, there are charter schools, which are could be a for-profit or a nonprofit, depending on how the business owners develop their school. But they are still required to do all of the public school assessments, all the testing, all the standardized requirements. They get paid the same way public schools, or maybe your local neighborhood school, that's a public school in the school district, by the number of students in the classroom. And that's how they're funded. They also they do some fundraisers, things like that for extra dollars, but all their operating money comes directly from the state.
Oh, interesting.
A charter school, in fact, there is a Montessori charter school near us. But again, when you're in a charter or public school, those fall under all the state requirements and guidelines.
Okay, so is the big reason somebody would choose a private school versus a charter school then just that they don't want to have their kid doing the testing?
There's a lot of private schools that follow the standardized testing. I think the difference really is Montessori isn't a standardized curriculum.
Right.
It's not one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to compare. You can't actually compare between charter and private, or public and private. It really depends on the curriculum that the school is using, or the philosophy in our case.
Okay, so how do you help parents choose to go with a private school versus going with one of the charter schools?
Well, Tara Mott, who's on the call here, she got into Montessori because of that same question.
Oh, interesting. Tell me about that, Tara.
So I taught public school. I have my teaching degree as a regular ed special ed teacher. And so I taught special ed self-contained for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. And we had our first child. And so when she was about 2, we started to look for something. She had been home with either her dad, I, or grandma. So we just started to look for something to allow like some socialization. And just visiting different daycare centers and different options that we had 21 years ago. I just wasn't finding like what, I don't know, I just really felt passionate or connected to. And so a friend of mine said, oh, go to a Montessori school. And I did. I scheduled a 30-minute observation and just was completely astonished and mesmerized by what I saw going on. And I think I spent like 3 hours and just stayed and asked a ton of questions and went home and decided I have to find out how to be a Montessori teacher. And we enrolled our daughter to start Montessori school. It was just such a mind-blowing experience and different than anything I'd seen, but somehow it still connected with what I felt education should be. So that's kind of how I got into it. And I feel a lot of parents who are looking for something that really is not just about learning to read and write, but really looking at the child as a whole, I feel are parents who probably tend to find themselves at Montessori schools.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I found myself there with my little guy, and I was, I fell in love. I went and interviewed, the principal, and went and talked to the teachers and looked at the school and that kind of thing before he was ready to go. And the principal told me the story about how Montessori schools came to be. And if I remember correctly, it's a doctor from the 1960s. Is that correct? No?
Much earlier. So Montessori, we're over 100 years old now since their first
Oh, wow. Okay.
Opened, yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that background so that our audience understands what the concept is.
Okay. So Maria Montessori, she was the first Italian physician. She was a doctor. She was a scientist before she became a doctor. And she went to school to be a doctor, got her doctor's degree, kind of happened upon education just through circumstances. And unlike any other educator who preceded her, she really just sat and watched the children to see what were they interested in, what kinds of things drew their attention, what did they spend a lot of time with. And then she just started making things to give to them to work with. And like she noticed like little 3, 4, 5-year-olds, they noticed little tiny things and they would sit and pick up pebbles. And so she also knew they had to learn to count. So she started making little tiny beads for the children to count. And she just went by trial and error. What worked, she kept using. What didn't, she changed. Sometimes she thought it would be for a younger child. It turned out to be for an older child, would be really interested in it. And so as she started to find what she later termed as materials that children would spend time with and were successful and enjoyed, she started taking them to children in other cities and other countries. And so it's really a system that became, it's really based on human development. So other than an arbitrary curriculum where someone decides, oh, we're going to learn addition facts at this grade, or we're going to learn these sounds at this age, Montessori is really based on those characteristics that we as all humans shared. And so in that sense, it's very intrinsically motivating for children to be able to work on something, when they have these tendencies to seek out small, tiny things and pick them up or order things or sequence things. And those are the kinds of activities that they're given in the classroom. It's just so amazing to see because they sit and they just work and they show such concentration, and it's not because it's anything magical with the teacher. They're just kind of given materials that really speak to them and kind of satisfy an inner desire to learn.
Yeah, I noticed that. Oh, sorry, Beth.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I noticed that with the experience with my son, and we had 2 teachers there, and they were phenomenal teachers. And so there were times when I could come into the classroom and just kind of see what's going on, or maybe I got there to pick them up a little early, so I would peek in the window, and see what's going on. And I loved that they had a certain time where they could go and pick a type of work that they wanted, you know, whether that be math or science related or whatever it is. And that, and it's more self-driven, really, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so of course they're going to be more engaged and more interested if it's something that they want to do, right?
Yes, definitely, for sure. One of the kind of catchphrases that you often hear with Montessori is follow the child, which really just means as an adult in the classroom, as a guide, we're just sitting back and we're watching. And, you know, my job as a guide isn't so much to teach or instill knowledge, but really to kind of connect them to the material, help them learn how to learn based on their development and their interests at the time.
So the types of parents that love Montessori or this type of education, alternative education in general, what are the philosophies or the core values or the things that they believe in, you know, at their core that make this a great fit for them and their families?
Well, it's hard, right, to speak to like everyone, but generally speaking, and for myself as a parent, I think one of the biggest things is, again, just looking at the child as a whole and knowing that it's not just about that child right now. You know, it's, you know, Montessori is often called, and she wrote a book, Education for Life, and that it's really a preparation for life. I want them to learn now those skills and those virtues, all of those things we need to be the kind of adult that we want our children to be. So it's all about, you know, learning to plan and organize. In a Montessori classroom, children have to decide, not just every day, but throughout the day, what am I going to do? When am I going to do it? How long am I going to do it? And so we want children who, they have mental flexibility, they are self-sufficient, they're independent, they learn how to regulate themselves. So I think that parents who are looking beyond reading and writing and are able to kind of look and see, I guess, mastery or success, not just as determined by getting an 80% on a math test. You know your multiplication facts or you don't, regardless of whether you take an exam or a test, right, every week. You know, we can see you know them because I can ask you, you can do it or you can figure it out. And sometimes it's kind of hard, right, for parents, because that's how we all grew up, knowing that's how you know you mastered something, right? Because you get an 80% or you got 100 or you didn't, so you know you need to practice more. So some parents who are willing to, I guess, you know, observe their children, connect with their children to look for those kinds of mastery and learning in a different way.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
So, do you have a question, Katie?
Sorry, I'm so excited about Montessori. I
You're
love
good. Go
I
for
really
it, girl.
loved the experience there. And something that I want to point out that I love about, and I'm sure this is part of the whole Montessori thing, is they will mix kids of different ages too. So it's like, you know, the bigger kids are kind of learning how to help the little kids, and the little kids are learning from the big kids. I loved that. And I have an extremely sweet little boy, little social butterfly anyway, but I feel like that really helped develop compassion and empathy for him. And so, I mean, am I on the right track there? Is that why that's done, or why is that done?
I think you are on the right track. I was actually talking to my daughter who was in Montessori for years. And that's one of the things she said she remembers most is, you know, being in that multi-age classroom and coming in as, you know, a little kiddo and looking up to those big kids and modeling after them, and then getting to take on more leadership, of course, as she became older. Montessori in and of itself is multi-age because, like I said, that it's based on like characteristics that we as humans share. And so those vary as we grow and we develop. So Montessori, the levels are put together based on those shared characteristics. So children are grouped from the age of 3 to 6 because they share very similar characteristics, versus when you get to elementary, then they're grouped like 6 years old to 12-year-olds. And so if you're in between the two different classrooms, one of the things that stands out the most is that in the primary class, which would be 3 to 6, the children are working mostly independently. Lessons are one-on-one. It's very quiet. And then you get into elementary and it looks, like chaotic. I don't know, for lack of a better word. It's loud, everyone's doing group work, you have 30 children and you may have, 8 or 12 different activities going on. And because during that time from 6 to 12 is when Montessori believed that there's this innate desire to learn morality and right and wrong and virtues. And so the classroom is designed to be social because that's what children are seeking out. And so unless we provide them the opportunity, right, to be social and figure out right and wrong and have those conversations about conflict resolution, then we're kind of missing like that golden spot for teaching those skills. Often we don't really think about teaching them until high school or college, but really this is the time that we want to teach that moral development that they're then going to take on, and hopefully then will shape those adults that they will be.
Heck yeah, you need a good base. I love it.
So I'm thinking about the, all of a sudden it all just flew out of my head and I had something so good. I'm like, what was it? When it comes to, red flags. Okay, so a lot of people, they'll send their kids to an alternative education because they're like red flags that like this isn't working well for their child in a public school system or whatever. With people that have chosen to send their kids to Montessori, I know that like it's always best if they send them at kindergarten or before. But what are some of those like red flags that parents see that tell them that like my child needs an alternative education?
So red flags, so if you're a parent then and your child's having trouble in a traditional classroom, is that what you're asking? What are some things you might look for? What
are some of like the most common things that are going wrong in a traditional classroom?
Right. So comparing, kind of looking like at what children need, like they need to be able to get up, they need to be able to walk around. Montessori, like there's such a strong connection between movement and cognition, which is why in a Montessori classroom, children get up and move. Just that flexibility, that ability to talk and brainstorm, especially when you get to elementary, we are very social beings and that's how we learn. We learn by talking, we learn by listening to what other people have to say. So sometimes, when we're confined to sit, it makes it hard. I think being able to choose what you're working on, how you're working on it, what you're going to research. I think all these things are things that empower children. Executive functioning is kind of the upcoming thing, supposed to be better predictor of, future success than even IQ. And so when you look at, you can compare like a more traditional classroom to like a Montessori classroom, children are practicing mental flexibility, working memory, they're having to plan and organize all the live long day for everything that they do, which it builds that self-esteem, right? That self-efficacy versus, sitting down and being told, what page to work on, when to turn the page, how many math problems to do. Who am I to tell someone when you've mastered, to do enough math problems that you've mastered it. So I guess to answer your question, like red flags, number one, does your child love learning? Are they joyful? Are they happy? Do they love to go to school? Because children should love to learn. It's like something innate in us as human beings. Probably, I don't know, concerns from their teacher might be another good red flag to look for. Just being in trouble a lot, not liking school.
Yeah, especially at that young age, right? Because why wouldn't they like school unless something was going on that needed to be addressed, right?
Yeah, well, like my daughter, she has a lot of anxiety. She had anxiety going to public school every day, right? And so she would fake being sick, and then we'd get the note from the school like, your child is in danger of being truant because she had such bad anxiety about going into a big school with tons of kids all around her and having to speak in front of 30 other kids and that sort of thing. And so those are for our family. As we've talked to her about, okay, we're probably going to do school from home this next year. She's been so relieved. And that's been such an interesting indicator for us, is that she like has relief that she's not going to be going back the same way that it was before. So, so I know that you guys have mentioned to me that some people will send their kids to a Montessori school for preschool, and then they stop when it's time for kindergarten. And we've talked about like why that is. Well, Katie, you're about to learn.
I'm about to learn.
Why that's not the best choice. What are your thoughts on that?
So, and a lot of parents make that transition, right? We all have to pay for childcare when they're young, and then they get to kindergarten, right? And free education. So for a lot of parents, that's just the way that it needs to be. We really, 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 like in the Montessori world, we love to keep them here to complete what we call like that 3-year cycle. And if you think of it, it's kind of like, you're building a cake for 2 years, and then that 3rd year, we're kind of putting all the icing on, we're topping everything off and really solidifying all those skills. It just kind of polishes everything off. So whenever children, they miss like that, all of that polishing and finality, it's kind of like, I don't know, getting 2/3 of the way through a college degree and then just, like not finishing that last little bit. So kind of
I don't know anybody who's done that.
No, I don't know
Either. So the 3 years, so if they get in, you said you take them at 18 months.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you're just looking to complete, like the thought here is just to complete like 3 years worth of this type of education. Is that what you mean?
No, it kind of sort of, so the program for the youngest children actually starts prenatal and then goes until they're 3, potty trained walking. So that's kind of the youngest, and that's called the Assistant to Infancy program. And then you have a primary program, and that's 3 to 6. So those are broken down into kind of like 3-year cycles. And then elementary, it's like 6 years. So it goes 6 to 12, or 1st grade to 6th grade. Just because that's kind of the tendencies that all match up. And then after 6th grade, then you go 7th through high school. And that's kind of like your middle school adolescent program. But generally, we kind of like to see, like if they're in elementary, if they can do like that 1st through 3rd, if they're making a transition, they know they're not going to be through 6th grade, we should kind of try to get through like that 3rd grade. Before moving on.
So one of the things that I think that a lot of parents, when they hear about like a group of kids ranging from like 5 to 8 or whatever, right? They hear that and they're like, well, those big kids are going to pick on my little kid. Which I've been to your school, I've talked to the kids there. I know that that's just not the case. But what do you say to families when they're worried about that?
So it is really different. It's a really different setting, I think, than what we see or we tend to expect. Our 6th graders, most of them have been in Montessori at least for, 7, 8 years. Some of them started when they were 3 or earlier. So they've grown up in this culture where it is cool to be kind. That's what's expected. You be kind. If you're a 12-year-old and a little 6-year-old comes and asks you for help tying a shoe, you help him because that's a kind thing to do, right? And so that's just the culture that they're brought up in. And we say the Pledge of Allegiance every day. We say a pledge to Mother Earth. And this last year, I remember taking a picture. We had 3 boys who were in, I think, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade who were standing holding hands while they were saying the pledge. And no one, they don't think about it. I mean, they're just, I don't know what, whatever moved them, and they were just feeling kind, and, and they held hands. And I think having that multi-age, nowhere else in society are we always with people who are our same age. And so we have seen the most interesting friendships between, a child who was in like 2nd, 3rd grade, very, very intelligent. And he really didn't have a lot of like peers his age that he had a lot in common with, but he had a lot in common with our 4th and 5th graders. And that's who we spent his academic time and his social time with, because he connected with those people, those friends who were much older than him.
And one of the things that I really loved, especially as an autism mom, that I really loved when I visited your school was seeing that like there were kids that you could tell were on the spectrum, but they were treated like everybody was friends. Like nobody treated anybody differently or less than, or, you know, like there was nothing that was like anything but we love each other, we have each other's backs. And it like is just so heartwarming and beautiful to be able to see kids be that good to each other, no matter how different someone might be.
It is. And you know, and it's nice because they've gone to school for years and years, so they're kind of like brothers and sisters, and so they know by each other's strengths and weaknesses. So when they're working together in groups, you know, someone might not be the best reader, but they might know a lot about history. And so when they're doing a history research, like, all right, well, let's get him to organize the timeline because he knows all the dates. You know, but so he gets that task rather than reading out loud because they know like he can do that really well and he's really good at it. It's just nice to see them working cooperatively in that way.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that we've also talked about is that like Montessori in the Park wouldn't be a fit for like my son. And so there are reasons for that. So when it comes to understanding the types of questions parents should be asking at schools to make sure that they're picking the right school for their kid, what are some of the things or questions that parents should be asking to be picking the right school?
You know, and so we want always to make sure that we're doing what's best for the child. And so a lot of what happens in our classroom, we make accommodations for children that are very natural, like they can get up and move around when they want to, flexible seating, right? One-on-one instruction, all those things happen that's just part of Montessori, that's just how it works. But certainly to be successful in that kind of a classroom, you have to be able to answer questions. You have to be able to sit and watch a lesson and then repeat a lesson. Of course, because we are so social and, you know, our class sizes tend to be a little bit larger than what you might typically see in a traditional school. I think used to be, maybe not so much anymore, but in elementary, anywhere between like 27 and 33 is typical. A little bit less for the primary programs. But again, you know, children that are aggressive, we can kind of work through some of it, but they really need to be able to kind of talk through conflict, be able probably to have a certain amount of self-initiation, make choices, because that's what happens in our classroom. So we give lessons and then the children need to make a choice. Sometimes for children coming in who are new to Montessori, it takes a while to learn that. But so long as you can learn, you know, and for some children, it tends to be too stimulating of an environment. If they need quiet, sometimes we can do things like noise reducing headphones, but sometimes that's just not enough. So just depending on their own self-regulation, level of, you know, of stimulation. And we have some children who really work better when there's a lot of stimulation. And so it tends to be a really good environment for them. I'm trying to think if there's anything else? Not that I can think of.
Okay, yeah. So just like knowing your kid and knowing, are they going to be able to work in the type of environment that the school is going to set up is really, really important.
Yeah, and probably every Montessori school is a little bit different, the level of support that they can provide. One child may do, you know, if you've got 15 children in a class, that's very different than having the same child in a class of 35. So right. It really does depend on the school and the classroom and the level of support that they're able to offer.
Yeah, and you know, I have seen that there are schools that I have seen a Montessori school that is private and it does offer one-to-one for autistic kids or special needs kids, but it, you know, it's $30,000 a year, and so right. But I know that a lot of families, they are going to tell themselves, well, that does sound nice, but we can't afford it, which is where Kim comes in, because Kim knows all the tricks to be able to pay for a private education in the state of Arizona for your child, even if your family doesn't feel like you have the means to do it. So, Kim, first off, I want you to just kind of maybe let people know about what kind of range of families that you have that attend Montessori in the Park because of the tricks that you're going to teach us.
Sure. So definitely, it seems like tricks because most people don't even know about it. If you have never heard of the Arizona state tax credits before, this is not a myth. This is a real thing. And I see that because last year, I think only 7% of Arizona taxpayers used the tax credits. So not a lot of people know about it, but it's a huge opportunity that opens up the doors to being able to choose a school for your family. So if you take away nothing else I'm about to say, because it may just fly right over, just Google Arizona state tax credits. That has been the biggest game changer for families that are able to come to our school. And it is our goal and has been our goal for the last 13 years to be available to all income levels because we want all children to have the same opportunities. So for school age students, so if your child's 5 by September 1st, you can apply for a scholarship at what's called a school tuition organization. The partner organization we use primarily is Arizona Tuition Connection. They've got a great video on their website. If you go to our website, mipschool.org, and click on support, you can be taken to that website as well. But the sole purpose of Arizona Tuition Connection is to take people's hard-earned dollars that are supposed to go to the state of Arizona and turn them into scholarships for private school students. So as an example, if we have a 5-year-old, again by September 1st, and it's school aged, which is the Arizona state rules, but you can apply for a scholarship and have your friends and family make their contributions to Arizona Tuition Connection, and those dollars immediately turn right into tuition money for you. The money comes to our school for sure, but it is designated to a student. We can only use it to reduce a family's tuition. So say you've owed the state of Arizona, I don't know, $3,000 last year. And it's not about what you withhold. So for all of you out there that use the state of Arizona as your savings account, that's not what I'm talking about. It's your total tax liability. It's what you actually earned and how much you owe the state. So say $3,000 is what you owed. For this year, I think it's $2,269. You could send and make a really big contribution for a scholarship. You have some brothers and sisters or coworkers or neighbors that all live here in Arizona and work here in Arizona and pay taxes. Very quickly, for us, five married couples covers tuition. It's not 5 married couples and then they find 5 married couples and they find 5. It's not like that. It doesn't take a lot of people to get a full tuition coverage. And I spend a huge amount of energy going out and just trying to get people to donate their tax credits. Again, it's money you owe the state. So we do get a lot of general funds that we're able to contribute to families as well. So if you're thinking, I know nobody here at all, we do have ways to help you also. And then last year, 67% of our families were low income. So
doesn't that just like give you the chills that they're able to do that for those families?
It did, top to bottom, hair to toes. Like, that is awesome, you guys. Amazing.
Well, it's because of tax credits. we're a private school, right? So you don't see a lot of people just donating money to help support a private school, mostly because the word private school, honestly, if it wasn't called a private school tax credit, I would never use the word ever, because that's not what we're trying to do, what we're trying to provide, but it's called a private school tax credit. And you may have heard about them before. Normally you'll see like $200 you can donate to a public school, or $400. Well, there's 4 different tax credits that we talk about. One of them is $1,000, and these are rates if you're a married couple and you file jointly. If you're single or you file as a single, it's half as much, as I'm going to say. But this year, $1,000 of the hard-earned money you had could have gone to foster care. Another $800 could have gone to, say, Habitat for Humanity, or the St. Mary's Food Bank, or hundreds of other charitable organizations. And then $400 can go to a public or a charter school. And that money has to go, when you donate it, you elect if you want that to go to, say, like a math club, or a field trip of some kind, or some type of extracurricular activity. For us, the private school tax credits, it's $2,300 and change for this tax year, but it has to go directly to replace a family's tuition expense. So it's not money I can use to, do any of the awesome things I need fundraisers to do, but it's what makes our school have the economic and cultural diversity that we have, because that's out there. I can't ever guarantee scholarships. I need families to help support, and I need to reach out to corporations. So anybody that has an S corp, or they're an LLC corporation, but they file as an S corp, or the CEO at Coca-Cola, a big C corporation like that, these guys pay a tremendous amount of taxes in Arizona, and they was $104 million Arizona says corporations can designate to low-income scholarships instead of sending to the state, which is how that 67% of families were able to come, is relationships that we have with corporations. And
Isn't that insane, Katie?
I know. I'm like mind blown.
Right. Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
insane. I didn't know any of this, Kim. Any of this. Like, I knew about the credit, and we are an S corp and we do give to schools. So I knew about that part, but how cool that it all works. Anyway, those details were definitely mind blowing.
Yeah, it's actually really sad, because if you think about 7% of taxpayers use the tax credits, think about how many like H&R Blocks and all the different tax offices that you see. Think about how many even have ever come into contact with it. So there's a lot of educating to be done, but just Google it. You're going to find a tremendous amount of information, and then you're going to be a little bit angry. Why haven't I been doing this? My kid's 7. We could have been going to a private school this whole entire time. I got all kinds of friends. We pay a lot of taxes. And they're dollar for dollar tax credits. You owe the state $2,000. That money can go right to support a scholarship.
And it takes nothing out of your own pocket. Like, it's already been taken out of your pocket. So,
Right. That's the cool part.
yeah.
This year's a little bit tough because they extended the tax deadline, but you can still contribute for this tax year, 2020. You can still do the tax credit for 2020. The corporation pledges, they're due July 1st. It's a minimum of $5,000 that will go, that each corporation, that's the minimum the state says. But that is a game changer.
And if people want to learn like step-by-step how to do this, if they go to Arizona Tuition Connection, is that what it is?
They can go to ArizonaTuitionConnection.com or our school website and click on support. And then that's actually a link that has Montessori In The Park information on it as well.
Awesome. Awesome. So is there anything else that people should know or that people aren't thinking about when it comes to choosing an alternative education that we didn't cover that you want to make sure that we get to everybody?
I would just add one thing. I always recommend to parents, go and observe, sit in the classroom, and then follow your heart. Like, you should have a pretty good idea. You sit for an hour, 45 minutes, a couple hours, go back a couple different days, and you should have a good idea, right? If that's what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
did. And it was great. And it was really nice, especially we checked out a couple of Montessori schools before we placed Jackson in one of them. And it was really nice to be able to hang out. We could stay as long as we wanted. They encouraged us to not interact with the kids and to just kind of be a fly on the wall. But the kids were cool, and the kids were trying to talk to us, and we're like, no. But it was cool. So I definitely can relate with that advice. I took it myself, and it definitely great advice there.
For sure. Well, Katie, what do we want everybody to do?
Well, we would like you all, please, if you would go to your favorite platform for listening to this podcast, subscribe and download. Our favorite platform is iTunes. We would prefer you use iTunes, but if you have another favorite platform, well, that's cool too. Please give us a 5-star rating. If you don't think we deserve a 5-star, just wait.
Don't leave anything. Well. Just don't leave a review yet.
Yeah. Wait till next week's topic, and then make a decision. And then keep waiting till next week.
Yes, keep waiting until you're ready to give us a 5-star review. Then
exactly.
Then you can leave one.
And that is because we here at MOMnation, we have this huge vision. So we are a resource for all moms from all walks of life, kids of all ages, right? So we are that resource. However, we are working on building what we like to lovingly call the MOMunes. And we're going to start that in Phoenix first, because Phoenix is where we are at. And what that is it's basically a home for moms that are transitioning into single motherhood for whatever reason. It could be escaping, abusive relationships. It could be the sudden loss of a spouse. It could be whatever. There's a whole bunch of reasons why a mom may transition into that and be in that space. And we have discovered through the many, many moms that we know and the many, many, many years we've been alive. Okay, me, not Beth. I've been alive many more.
Just a few.
We have run into several single mamas that could just use a hand up. It doesn't mean a handout. It doesn't mean, them having to be a part of this scenario forever and ever. It's going to be designed for a short time and just to get them back on their feet and get them going again. So if you guys could please help us with that. Our dream is to have one of these in every major city across the country. And we are able to do that, or will be able to do that because of gaining likes, followers, downloads, and all of that jazz. Did I cover it all, Beth?
You sure did. You nailed it, Katie.
Yay, I've been practicing.
Good job. I'm proud of you.
Awesome. Well, ladies, it was such a pleasure to meet you both. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I know that you answered a lot of questions that our audience has, and we know, Beth, because we see these conversations day in and day out. We have 10 groups, 11 now, because we just opened up Washington.
We sure
yeah.
did.
So we have 11 MOMnation groups across the country, and Beth and I see a lot of posts, and would you agree that school, how to find a school? Tons and tons.
It's I would say top of mind for pretty much every mom right now.
Yeah,
for sure.
Especially right now with all the stuff.
Yes.
But anyway, ladies, it was a pleasure to meet you. Thank you again so much. Thanks for all of the advice and the information about the tax credit stuff. That was totally mind-blowing. And we hope that you guys have an excellent rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.